Merry Little Vengeance, a holiday quick kill story by Joan De La Haye. To the Grinches with a killer streak. As you dive into Merry Little Vengeance, I wish you a season filled with just the right mix of chaos and cheer. May your days be merry, your nights thrilling, and your skeletons mostly buried. Home for the homicides.
I feel naked without my Beretta. Traveling with a pistol and a myriad of other weapons over the Christmas and New Year period is apparently frowned upon, or so my agent Jane tells me.
Flying commercial for the first time in years has tested the limits of my self-control.
But I'm a professional.
If I have to or can kill with a spoon, if that's not an option, my thumbs will work just as well. There were a few moments during the almost 2 days of travel from Barbados to visit my family in Pretoria, for the first time in nearly a decade, that I almost forgot I wasn't working and was supposed to be on holiday. A particularly obnoxious couple gave a single mother with her baby a hard time. I would have taken them out for free if the young mother had asked. I could have made it look natural or like an accident, depending on her request.
There are so many ways to kill someone on a plane or in an airport. But anyway.
Moving along swiftly. I have a rule or a code. No matter how annoying the kid is or how stupid a woman has been in her choice of husband or profession, I won't kill them no matter how good the money is. But if you have a guy you want taken out, I'm your girl as long as he's earned that bloody end, of course.
I'm not a complete monster.
My parents, or at least my mother, still think I've been working as a flight attendant for an airline.
They stopped asking questions about what I did for a living when they dropped by unexpectedly while I was living in Vienna.
I tried to hide the rifle and the knives, but my father got a glimpse of them and some of my scars, including what was obviously a fresh bullet wound on my shoulder. Thankfully, he had the sense not to ask any questions, and distracted my mother long enough for me to hide the rest of the tools of my trade. After that, I stopped telling them where I was living, and since they went on pension, they can't afford to travel to the countries I usually work in. Thank fuck.
I suppose I could pay for the plane ticket for them to visit me, but honestly, I'm always working and don't have the time to play tourist in any of the cities I visit.
I'm also not really there long enough to visit the tourist spots or play hostess to my parents. I usually just shoot in and out, so to speak. The only place I don't take jobs is in my hometown of Pretoria. Jane has been trying to get me to take jobs there since there are so many targets, and it's very easy to make it look like a random crime, given the high crime rate in the city. I still take the odd job in Cape Town or Johannesburg. However, I try to avoid those jobs as much as possible. I prefer Europe and South America. They pay better. Visiting my family and taking a holiday was Jane's idea. She thinks I'm on the verge of either full-on burnout or a breakdown of some kind. Apparently, I got a little stab happy on the last job, and as a result, Jane put me on a timeout so I could get some well-deserved R&R, or that's how she tried to frame it. I think she thinks I might become a liability if I don't have a holiday, which would be a very bad thing in my line of work. So here I am, spending Christmas and New Year with my parents in South African suburbia, in the middle of an African summer during a fucking heat wave. I could have been skiing in the Alps, sipping glühwein and taking out some mafia don who'd pissed off one of the cartels, but no, Jane insisted I visit my parents and have some quality family time. Kill me now. Oh bloody night. The guy at passport control is sweating his ass off despite the aircon blowing, while cheesy Christmas music plays through airport speakers. Christmas lights twinkle all over the ceiling, and a few plastic Christmas trees line the walls as I walk towards the gate, dragging my suitcase behind me. Windows and glass doors have been sprayed with fake snow.
They've tried to make it look festive, but to be honest, this time of year has never been my favorite.
Actually, I fucking hate Christmas.
My father is nervous when he meets me at the gate.
He hugs me tight, as he always has, but there is something in his eyes. I've learned to pick up on subtle cues over the years. Spotting a furtive glance, an inadvertent gesture, or strange body language can mean the difference between life and death in my line of work.
And there is something off with almost everything my dad is doing.
He's telegraphing like a caffeine addict jonesing for an espresso.
I can't believe my father is afraid of me, though. Something or someone else has to be freaking him out. So, I say after a particularly awkward silence, and once we're safely in the car, heading out of OR Tambo International and onto the R21 highway to Pretoria. What's wrong? Nothing, Marin, he says, taking his eyes off the road for a few seconds to look at me.
He only calls me Marin when he's either worried or pissed off, and since I haven't done anything recently to make him angry, at least nothing he knows about, I'm guessing it's the former. If he ever found out about the kind of men I've taken out over the years, he'd either be horrified or in some twisted way proud.
No, scratch that, definitely horrified. But there's no way he knows, so this has to be about something else.
He usually calls me Mars Bar, because of an incident with my older sister, Tamsin.
But then again, maybe calling me something Tamsin started when we were kids might be a painful reminder of her.
Maybe I'm overthinking things.
Or maybe Jane's right, I really do need a break from killing people.
I try to relax on the drive, but Dad is grinding his teeth and wringing the steering wheel as though it's someone's throat.
I have to bite my tongue and not tell him that if he were to do that to someone, it would take too long to suffocate them, and all he'd do is give them a friction burn and likely just get himself killed.
As the thought pops into my head, I know saying it will give him something else to worry about. Thankfully, my random thought filter has had a lot of exercise over the years. You must mind your P's and Q's when working with mercenaries and killers. You can't just blurt out any random thought, because you never know what could set them off and result in a knife in your back or poison in your coffee. My business tends to attract people with psychotic traits, so you learn to keep your mouth shut.
It's just safer.
Before you start wondering, Jane insists on having everyone she works with put through an array of psychological tests. She says it's so she knows exactly who and what she's dealing with, and the sorts of jobs we're best suited for. And yes, I was diagnosed as having a borderline personality disorder, but I'm not a full-on psychopath. My disorder was brought on by trauma, which is why I only kill bad guys. I like getting payback for those who can't do it themselves. And yes, I do get paid extremely well for doing something I really, really enjoy. Don't judge. I keep hoping he'll spill his guts so I can stop obsessing about whatever bug is up his arse. I'm supposed to be relaxing so I can get back to work. If I can convince Jane that I've been a good girl and have chilled enough, maybe I can get a nice New Year's Eve job, but he is not helping me find my chill. I really miss my guns. He still hasn't said anything by the time we reach our exit. Mind you, I quite enjoy a quiet ride, but not when the other person is my usually chatty father. Granted, I've been gone a few years, but we've still spoken on the phone and done video calls where I couldn't get the man to shut up, so him not being particularly loquacious is a red flag. I just hope he'll get over whatever is bugging him soon. I don't want to spend my holiday dealing with a grumpy old man, giving me the silent treatment. If that's going to be the case, I might as well have pushed Jane to let me do the annual charity Christmas job. Jane makes one of us work with old man Caleb as his backup, so he doesn't screw up the job as an act of charity every year over the holidays. Caleb only works during the holiday period because he looks like Santa. Well, if Santa were an alcoholic wielding a machine gun. I also think there's more to his bad Santa routine, but I've never had the guts to ask him about it.
I also don't think he'd tell me the truth.
He's been in the business longer than he should have been. In fact, he should have retired when I was still in high school, but most of the money he's earned being a trigger for hire has gone into booze and hookers, so I doubt he's saved up for retirement.
He's also trained most of us, and has saved all our asses at some point in our careers.
Getting old does not happen often in my business, so making sure Caleb gets to see another New Year's Eve makes us all feel like we might actually live to see old bones. When Jane wouldn't let me do the Alpine job, I'd volunteered to be Caleb's backup to avoid having to come home, but Jane decided that he and I would both be better off if one of the others in her little black book of murder played Santa's little helper. So not cool of her.
But anyway.
My father sighs as we pull into my parents' driveway.
It's the only house on the block without any decorations.
Although most of the others have also done a pretty crap job on the decoration front.
But to be fair, it's hard to get into the holiday spirit when you're sweating, and mosquitoes are having their own party, drinking your blood.
He pushes the button on the remote for the gate to open, and the dogs go crazy, barking and dancing along the fence at the edge of the driveway leading to the double garage. It's strange that my mother wasn't with my father to meet me at the airport, but when she doesn't come rushing out to greet me when my dad parks the car in the garage, I start getting a smidge peeved, not to mention insulted. I mean, fuck, if you haven't seen your only surviving kid in years and they come home, you're supposed to meet them at the door with happy tears streaming down your face, or is that asking too much?
Okay, I say as I slam the car door shut. What gives?
Are you guys mad at me or something?
Of course not, Marsbar, he says as he gently closes his door and sighs.
His shoulders slump as he slowly walks towards the door leading from the garage to the kitchen. He looks like he's aged more than 20 years in my absence. He looks even older than Caleb, and that's saying something.
Where's Mom?
I ask as I follow him, leaving my luggage in the car boot.
Why wasn't she at the airport to greet me? He sighs again.
It's the sigh of a very old and tired man who wants to have some peace, but I'm sure as shit not going to give him any unless he tells me what's going on.
Marin, he finally says when we're inside the bright and cheery kitchen of my childhood. He's back in town and living with his new wife just a few houses up the street.
Your mother isn't handling it very well, so please be gentle with her, okay? Can you do that for me?
Who's back in town?
I ask as I mentally start going through the very short list of men who would upset my mother so much that she couldn't meet me at the airport.
Oh, I say as it dawns on me. Gareth.
Gareth Richter.
Has that fucking bastard resurfaced?
My father nods and sighs as he opens the fridge, pulls out 2 bottles of Heineken and hands me one. I twist the cap off and glug down the ice-cold beer while my brain begins to process that the guy I know killed my sister and got away with it, and then disappeared, has stupidly moved back to our neighborhood and is now just a few houses away. As I put the empty bottle on the counter, I can't help the smile that pulls at the edges of my mouth.
Don't, Dad says. Don't even think about it. I said nothing when we visited you in Vienna, but I'm not an idiot.
I saw the scars on your body and those weapons.
I put 2 and 2 together.
I didn't think you got them in a car accident then, and I haven't gotten dumber with age, so don't even think about lying to me now.
Okay, Pa, I said. But you have to admit, him moving back here was really fucking stupid. He always was an arrogant little prick, Dad says as he grabs 2 more beers from the fridge. I never did understand what your sister saw in him.
And I lost 2 daughters because of him and what he did that night, so if you think I don't want to see him punished, you're wrong, but I want him punished the right way.
What's that supposed to mean? I ask as I take the second beer from him. You didn't lose 2 daughters that night. You were never the same after that, Marsbar.
He downs his beer and slams it on the counter.
You withdrew into this angry cocoon, and you shut us out.
How many times did your teachers call us in because you had beaten the crap out of some boy who looked at you the wrong way, or because he was rude to one of the girls in your class, or just generally rubbed you the wrong way?
I don't know.
I shrug, unsure how to respond to what he's saying.
I didn't think I'd been that much of a handful while I was growing up.
Clearly I was wrong. Every time you went out, I waited for the phone to ring, expecting a call from the cops telling me I had to come bail you out or telling me you'd been killed because you'd picked a fight with the wrong man. I'd hoped that when you started with the martial arts, you'd find a way to channel all that rage, but it just turned you into a sharper weapon.
I wasn't even surprised when I saw all those weapons and scars in Vienna. I'm sorry, Pa, but what did you expect me to do or to become after Tammy disappeared and nobody, including you or Mom, believed me about what I'd seen that night? I slam the bottle down and don't bother to give him time to respond.
It's the first time we've talked about what happened to Tamsin since the detectives who were supposed to be looking for her told us that there was nothing they could do, and that until a body turned up, she would be considered a missing person, probably a runaway.
I know he killed her. I heard him shouting at her that night, and I saw him throw her into his boot, as though she was nothing more than a sack of potatoes.
You and Mom could have backed me up with the cops, but you didn't. Instead, you tried to convince me I'd imagined it all. You and the cops bought into that bullshit story of his about Tammy running away, but she would never have done that.
She would never have left me alone that night. Tamsin was a lot of things, but irresponsible was not one of them. I don't want to fight with you, Marin. He puts his hands up in surrender. I know I didn't handle any of what happened well. I know you weren't lying. The cops knew you weren't lying, but none of us could prove anything. We all knew he did it.
He was an abusive bastard, but she wouldn't break up with him, and every time she tried he would wheedle his way back in with promises that he would change.
The worst part was that she wouldn't let me protect her.
Every time I tried, she told me to back off and stay out of her relationship. How do you think it makes me feel knowing that I couldn't protect my little girl from a pissant like Gareth? Over the years, I've tried not to think about what happened the night Tamsin was murdered. I've tried to forget about her screams, the sounds of him hitting her, and the sound of her shoes kicking on the floor as he strangled her. I've drowned those memories in other people's blood. My parents were out that night, and Tamsin was supposed to have been babysitting me. She told Gareth not to come over, that she needed space.
He showed up anyway.
I was asleep in my bed, but the shouting woke me up. I wanted to jump out of bed and run to her room to see if she was okay, but I couldn't move.
I was too scared.
All I could do was listen to him kill my big sister, and look out the window from my bed as he threw her body into his car.
He even waved at me as he did it.
By the time my parents came home, he'd tidied up her room and packed a bag of her stuff, making it look like she'd run away.
I hid in my room like a coward the whole time. I would never forgive myself for it.
Since I hadn't seen him kill her, Gareth told the cops what I'd heard had been a movie they'd been watching before she'd asked him to give her a lift to the bus station. He claimed I'd seen him put her suitcase in his car and not her body. Since there hadn't been any blood or signs of a struggle, it was the word of an 8-year-old girl against an honours student who had his provincial colours for rugby. He'd been valedictorian and head boy. He'd painted Tamsin as a troubled, rebellious teenager.
No matter what my parents said, to the contrary, it didn't seem to matter.
Her teachers didn't know her well enough, because she'd just been an average student.
If she'd been failing or an A student, they would have noticed her, but they didn't.
She didn't have any other friends besides Gareth's. There was no one else to contradict his description of her. As a result, his version of events was considered the most plausible and therefore the one the cops wrote down in her case file. And since there was no body, there wasn't a crime. So now you know why I am the way I am, and do the things I do.
It's all Gareth fucking Richter's fault.
Every body I've put in the ground can be laid at his feet. Although, considering the type of people I've killed, that may or may not be a good thing.
It's all a matter of perspective, I guess.
A splash of crimson. Dad and I sit drinking our beers at the kitchen table, lost in our own thoughts about Tammy and that fuckhead Gareth Richter. I'm bone tired, but the news that he's back in town and living just up the street has me wired.
I just have to find out exactly which house he's in, and then I could quite easily take care of good old Gareth, just like he did to Tammy. I have to admit, the thought of what he would look like while I strangled him has been a recurring dream of mine over the years. I wonder if I could get him to tell me where he buried Tamsin so I could drag him to her grave and make him beg for his life. I sigh and take another sip of beer.
Dad and I have at least slowed down on the drinking.
It's still pretty early in the morning.
Even though beer in our family has long been considered a breakfast food, I still want to stay sober so I can plan exactly how Gareth is going to bite the bullet, take a dirt nap or swim with the fishes. However, that last one would be difficult since there isn't a river deep enough for me to weigh him down with cement and not worry about him being found. I guess I could take him up to Hartbeesport Dam, but that's a fucking long drive with a few toll gates in between and way too many people around.
You're here, my mother says as she walks into the kitchen still wearing her cotton nightie and rushes over to hug me.
She promptly bursts into tears.
It's my father's turn to sigh, except his is sad unlike mine. I suppose your father has told you about who moved into the Smiths' old house, she asks as she disentangles herself from me and looks at the empty bottles on the table. He didn't tell me it was the Smiths' place, I say as I remember something from the Christmas when Tammy was killed. Didn't fuckface house sit for them that holiday?
My parents look at each other before they look back at me, and nod.
We've been invited, along with most of the neighborhood, to a friend's mass party on Christmas Eve, my mother says as she picks up my dad's beer and has a sip. That's today, dear, Dad says as he takes the bottle from her and drinks from it. Is it really Christmas Eve already? She says, taking the bottle back from him. It doesn't matter anyway, because I'm not going. I think we should all go, I say with a grin. You can't be serious, Dad says. Oh, but I am, I say as all the delicious possibilities start dancing through my brain. He probably isn't expecting us to show up, but he invited you just to rub your noses in the fact that he's back and free as a bird, living his happy little life with his happy little wife.
Speaking of, have you met the wife? Mom nods.
She looks just like Tamsin.
She bursts into tears again, and my father holds her until her sobs subside.
I guess he has a type, I say. Does he beat the new one too?
My parents exchange another look, my mother sniffs and my father nods.
What time do the festivities begin? I ask as I take another sip. We're supposed to be there at noon for lunch, which means we'll probably only eat after 3, Mom says. And he probably won't have enough snacks for us to fill up on while we wait for the food to cook. He wants to have a poi key competition, Dad says, explaining why it would take so long before we'd eat.
I've never understood the South African tradition of cooking a stew in a cast-iron 3-legged witch's pot over an open fire and having competitions to see who could cook the best one.
It always takes too long.
Granted, the food is invariably delicious, especially when my dad is doing the cooking, probably because he always adds a whole bottle of wine and a bottle of Coke to his lamb poi key to soften the meat. My dad's poi key usually results in a rather satisfying food coma, although that's not what I have in mind for Gareth.
So I guess I've got enough time to shit, shave and shampoo, I say as I glance at my watch. My father always used to say it when he had to get ready for something when I was a child.
It became a family expression over the years.
And maybe grab an hour or so of sleep before we have to make our entrance and make everyone feel incredibly awkward.
My parents both sigh and nod. Christmas Eve with its garlands and laughter will soon be drenched in crimson. It'll be the kind of celebration no one forgets, least of all Gareth. Festive faux pas. We walk 2 blocks up the street. My father and I each carry a cooler box in one hand, and my mother has our camping chairs. South Africans tend to bring camping chairs to social gatherings, especially if it's an outdoor function like a barbecue, aka a braai as we call it locally, or a potjie just in case the host doesn't have enough chairs.
It's a thing.
I'm also carrying my dad's potjie pot, which he's been using over the years and swears has been specially seasoned with just the right spices to bring out the perfect flavors in whatever he cooks in it. He refuses to use a new one. I'm a highly trained assassin, but here I am using the muscles I've been toning for killing assholes for years to carry shit a couple of blocks for a party. Some might think that my muscles and skills would be better put to use if I cut all the bull and simply broke in, tortured, maimed and slowly killed Gareth, but where would the fun be in that? I want to watch him preening around his home, thinking he's won, and then I'm going to snuff his lights out.
But anyway, that's the thought process.
In case you're worried that I might be too tired to make Gareth pay for what he did to Tammy, rest assured, I feel remarkably refreshed after my shower and 2-hour-long nap.
It's not the first time I've had to go a few days without a proper night's sleep.
But as I look at my parents as we trudge up the slight incline of the street to Gareth's house, I wonder how long it's been since they've been able to sleep. If I were to hazard a guess, it's probably been since Gareth moved into the Smiths' old place. I hear laughter from his back garden, and cheesy Christmas music as we get to his gate. I'd hoped to avoid Mariah Carey and Wham, but no such luck. If he hadn't already made it onto my naughty list for his past sins, his taste in holiday music would have.
There's the sound of a splash, probably someone diving into the pool.
I'm guessing one of the neighborhood kids or a not-so-sober adult. I don't remember the Smiths having a garden big enough to fit most of the families on the street comfortably, but they had a decent entertainment area inside and around their kitchen. When I was a kid, I spent many holidays in their pool with their kids, while Mr. Smith and my dad cooked the meat on the braai, and Mrs. Smith and my mom made salads and drank wine while they gossiped about the goings-on in the neighborhood. Tamsin was usually off with Gareth and his friends, who were way too cool to hang out with her parents and little sister. When she was murdered, those happier times with the Smiths and most of my parents' friends ended abruptly. None of us felt much like socializing by the pool after that. We didn't want to face all those sympathetic looks. We didn't want their pity, we wanted Tammy back and Gareth punished. The woman who opens the front door and walks towards the gate is about my age, so I'd say a good 10 years younger than Gareth. My mother wasn't lying when she said she looked just like Tammy. She looks just as I always imagined Tamsin would, if she'd lived to see her 20s or 30s. As she opens the gate for us and I walk past her, I get a whiff of alcohol, and it's not just beer on her breath, she's been hitting the hard stuff. Judging by her unsteady gait, she's been hitting it hard and started earlier than we did.
And just like Tammy, she's used a lot of makeup to cover fresh bruises.
Summer makes it difficult to cover those pesky bruises on your arms with clothes, and makeup tends to be sweated off. Well, at least he hasn't strangled her yet, and he never will if I have anything to say about it. She stumbles as she leads us through the house to the back garden. I catch her by her elbow just before she faceplants into the tiled floor.
"I'm all right," she slurs as she waves me away and keeps walking on unsteady legs.
I notice boxes that are in the process of being unpacked. Discarded newspaper, bubble wrap and other sundry detritus from moving litter the floor. Even though they're still unpacking, the Christmas decorations are up in full force.
It looks like Santa's elves threw up all over the place.
They must have spent a fortune at Santa's warehouse. They've even got those overly cute gingerbread men piled on a plate on the kitchen counter. As we approach the patio, I see Gareth playing at being the perfect host and laughing with a few of the neighbors, some of whom I recognize from my childhood. People who would have known Tammy and were friends with my parents, and who should have known better than to be laughing with that piece of shit. There are also a few new faces. People who wouldn't know about Tamsin, or have any clue about the monster they were sharing a joke with. I recognize the mask he's wearing in front of all these people.
It's a mask I've worn many times in public while working a job.
His wife, whose name I probably should have asked for but couldn't be bothered, stumbles down the steps to the patio and causes a bit of a scene. All their guests turn to look at her flop down the stairs, with the grace of a giant baby panda. Gareth's carefully constructed mask slips. His face is a mixture of rage and embarrassment. He would have been on her in seconds, letting his fists do the talking if there hadn't been people around.
She smiles one of those drunken smiles at us. She knows he can't do anything to her in front of witnesses.
He clenches his fists for a few seconds when he sees my parents and me standing next to his wife. I can't help but smile as he tries to reassemble the pleasant mask of being an affable, innocent guy on his face, but it's too late. Everyone has seen through his facade. There are a few uncomfortable coughs as I reach down and help her to her feet. My parents and I stand there on the step, making eye contact with the people who know the history and watch them squirm.
They all wear the same surprised expression. None of them expected us to show up. I do love doing the unexpected.
People's reactions are always so telling.
I'm so glad you made it, Gareth says as he gets a grip on himself, walks over to us and takes the cooler box from me. You've certainly grown up, Mars Bar. It's Marin, I say with an equally fake smile. There's no way I'm going to let him call me by the nickname Tammy gave me. No one calls me that anymore.
Well, no one who wants to live to see another day does. Everyone laughs, thinking I'm joking. Only my dad coughs and gives me a warning look. I smile sweetly.
You'll always be Mars Bar to me.
Gareth smiles and licks his lips.
Come on, let's get you guys settled over here, close to the fire, and you can tell me what you've been up to. What's it been 10 or so years since I last saw you? I think it's closer to 15 years, I say. You haven't changed much, still the same Gareth. I've put on a couple of Ks, he says as he pats his tummy, which hasn't got any extra weight on it.
He's still got a six-pack of muscles under his prissy LaCroix polo shirt. He probably works out every day, and then there's all the extra exercise he gets, smacking his wife around.
Jenny baby, he calls over my shoulder to his wife, I guess.
Who else would he be calling baby, right?
Come meet the Cross family. I already met them, she shouts back with the honesty that comes from being pissed out of her gourd. I let them in, remember.
I look over my shoulder and laugh as she waddles to the pool and jumps in, her floral dress ballooning around her like a pastel jellyfish. The kids who'd been playing a game of Marco Polo burst out laughing too. The adults seem less amused. Two wives stroll over to check that she's not drowning, while others whisper to their husbands that perhaps they should get going. They also have to visit their in-laws for Christmas Eve dinner and don't want to be late. Fathers start calling their kids out of the water. While the situation is amusing, and I love watching Gareth's discomfort, everybody leaving just yet doesn't suit my plan. I wink at my parents, jog over to the pool and jump in. My sandals slip off and bob lazily on the water's surface.
I laugh as loudly as I can, and Jenny does too.
The wives who had shown concern for Jenny's well-being are surprised for a few moments but then join in the fun.
It's been so bloody hot, I say to the laughing wives. We could all do with a cool down, don't you think? I have to admit, I haven't had this much fun on a job in a long time.
I can't remember the last time I really laughed. If I'm honest, I don't think anyone in my family has genuinely laughed since Tammy was still alive. Just to be clear, I'm supposed to be on holiday, and I'm not going to earn any money on this, but taking out Gareth isn't just personal, it's the job of a lifetime. It might not be like any of the other hits I've done, and even though I'm a professional who prefers to keep personal and professional separate, this is deeply personal, and the most important job of my career.
It's a job I can't afford to fuck up.
I'm also the first to admit that my judgment on this one might not be what it should be, but hey, it is what it is, right? The longer we splash around in the pool laughing like kids, the more uncomfortable Gareth looks.
But the more fun we have, the more of our neighbors join us in the pool.
A few husbands have removed their t-shirts and sandals and dived in. Even my parents sit on the pool steps, dangling their feet in the water.
Their smiles are genuine and relaxed.
Even though under my father's smile there's a slight tension. My father is nobody's fool. He knows me well enough to know that everything I'm doing in that pool is completely out of character, but no one else at the party knows me, so hopefully they think I'm being kind to Jenny, and turning an uncomfortable situation around for the sake of our hosts. And later, they'll remember me fondly as the woman who jumped in the pool, and turned an awkward situation into something that would make for a fun anecdote at future parties and get-togethers.
It might be strange that I want them to remember me, but I do.
You see, they would remember me being there anyway, but instead of remembering me as someone who might have a grudge against Gareth, they'll remember me for being fun and sweet, the exact opposite of someone who wanted him dead.
While everyone is in or around the pool laughing and drinking and having a fabulous party, probably the best Christmas Eve party any of them have been to in a while, Gareth paces in front of the fire, staring at the uncooked food and poi key pots that have been forgotten.
All his carefully laid plans of how he wanted the party to go have gone up in flames, or rather down in a splash. He always was a control freak, and losing control of any situation for someone like Gareth is bound to cause a rather violent reaction.
I just have to wait for him to blow his top in front of all our neighbors. "Jenny," Gareth yells from the edge of the pool. "Get your drunk ass out of there. You're embarrassing me." That didn't take long.
Jenny has sobered up enough in the cool water to know what will happen the moment she gets out of the pool, but she climbs the steps like a death row inmate walking to the execution chamber. Her dress clings to her thin body. The water has washed away the concealer, exposing the mottled bruises beneath. Gareth grips her by her bruised arms and drags her towards the house. The rest of us slowly climb out of the pool, looking embarrassed and uncomfortable as we watch Gareth pulling her behind him.
"Poor girl," one of the women says. "She shouldn't have gotten so drunk," another one says. "I'd also be embarrassed if I were him." "I guess the party's over," one of the men says.
The music volume goes up and Leona Lewis's "One More Sleep" makes my ears bleed. Did he choose the worst holiday playlist to torture us?
I think I hear a scream, but the music drowns it out.
Minutes later, Gareth strolls out as though nothing happened with a few towels and a broad smile.
"Of course the party isn't over. It's only just begun," Gareth says as he throws one of the towels at me. It's not a party till somebody dies.
I watch and wait as people uncomfortably snack on Simba and Flanagan's chips, dipping them in store-bought sour cream and chives dip Mom rescued from the back of one of her cupboards. It's one of those dips that doesn't have an expiry date, and would probably still be good in another decade, or after another world war. One of the neighbors made a biltong-flavored dip from scratch with proper biltong flakes.
It's much better than a beef jerky dip I had in the States a few months back.
Needless to say, the biltong dip is everyone's favorite. To be fair, my mother was in no mood to attend the party in the first place, so she wasn't looking to impress Gareth or anyone else with her dip-making skills.
But these neighborhood holiday parties tend to be pretty competitive from what I remember, and now she's feeling she should have put in more effort.
I don't know how to tell her, but no one will remember this party for the dips or the food that nobody has started cooking. They'll remember it and speak about it for years to come because someone was murdered or disappeared.
I still have to decide which.
Most of the neighbors made excuses and left quickly after the Jenny incident. I probably wasn't the only one who heard her scream. Gareth wasn't quite fast enough with pumping up the volume. I need to get into the house and check what he did to her, so I can decide just how I'm going to end him.
If she's dead, I can make it look like a murder-suicide. If she's still alive, I don't want her to end up as a suspect, so I have to make him disappear, which makes things a little more complicated but not impossible. After all, he did it to Tammy, and I've done it on several occasions over the years where the client didn't want it to look like a hit. But on all those jobs, I was the consummate professional, and was prepared for all possible eventualities.
This time, I'm winging it.
It's not how I like to do things, but it is what it is.
I could probably take my time and stalk Gareth for a few days until New Year's Eve. I could make sure I get all my ducks in a row, take the time I usually would before I kill someone.
But with the party, Jenny's antics and Gareth's behavior, I have to do it today.
I have a narrow window of opportunity, and I might not get another shot that's as convenient, and gives me a plausible excuse for being in his house.
I also just don't want to wait any longer.
I've waited for over 15 years, and won't wait another day to give Gareth the bloody Christmas he deserves. I can see my parents are also getting antsy. We're one of the few remaining families still at the party. Gareth is trying to keep people from leaving by pouring drinks and attempting to charm them.
He's failing miserably. He probably wants to keep them there for the same reason I do.
They give him an alibi of sorts if he's already killed Jenny. Who would think he would kill his wife during a party with so many people around?
I would. I'm sorry, but I need to use your restroom, I say, standing up and strolling towards the house. Please use the guest loo, Gareth says. The one closest to the front door.
We haven't finished unpacking, so the main bathroom's still a bit of a mess. Jenny would be embarrassed if you saw its condition.
Sure thing, I say as I speed up my steps, pretending my bladder's about to burst.
I can feel him watching me.
He tries to act as though nothing's wrong, but his eyes give him away.
He's worried that I won't just go to the guest loo, and he's right.
I'm going to look for Jenny. I need to know if she's alive or not.
The kitchen already tells a story as I walk in. There are bits of broken glass in the sink, as well as a knife that looks like it's got some blood on it, but that's not enough. There could be any reason for blood and broken glass in the kitchen sink. Jenny could have cut herself if she broke a glass, or she could have cut herself on the knife cutting vegetables for the poi key. There are so many plausible excuses Gareth could use, but I'm not going to give him a chance to explain any of them to anyone. I also didn't notice them when Jenny led us through the kitchen when we arrived. If they'd been there earlier, I would have seen them. One of the gingerbread men has also lost his head since we arrived. I wonder if Gareth would be stupid enough to leave her in the bathroom, and then think I wouldn't have a look, especially after he asked me not to. Telling any woman not to go snooping in a bathroom is like waving a red flag at a bull.
Of course we're going to snoop.
I don't have much time before he looks to see where I am, which is precisely what I want him to do, but I want to find Jenny first. Do I do the obvious and look in the bathroom, or do I go to the next obvious option? I also have to take into consideration how much time Gareth had to stash Jenny's body and where in the house her scream came from. He also didn't have blood on him when he came out, and he hadn't changed his clothes. I also didn't notice any cuts or nicks on his hands or legs, which raises a few questions about the blood in the sink and the broken glasses. Sobs mixed with the sound of running water come from down the passage. I guess I was wrong, Jenny's still alive. I know I should be relieved, but her being alive complicates things.
I could always knock her out.
Her being passed out while her husband disappears from the land of the living, given her condition earlier, wouldn't raise too many eyebrows. If I do it just right, I can make it look as though Gareth was the one who did it.
I take a quick look around the bathroom door jamb.
She's washing blood off her fingers from a nasty cut.
That explains the blood in the sink.
She also has a fresh welt on her cheek that looks like she was slapped. Gareth doesn't seem to care if people know he beats his wife. She looks up and examines her face in the mirror.
She doesn't see me in the reflection.
She sighs, shakes her head and looks down again as more violent sobs rack her thin body. Hopefully what I'm about to do won't cause her too much more pain, and in the long run I'm saving her from more beatings.
Her eyes are closed as I come up behind her.
A quick chop with the edge of my hand to the back of her neck, and she slumps to the ground.
Sorry, hun, I whisper, trying to make her comfortable on the floor. But you'll thank me in time.
I close the bathroom door when I hear Gareth and the rest of his guests walking down the passage towards the front door.
My parents aren't with them. They're probably still outside waiting for me.
I can imagine them getting annoyed that I'm taking so long. They just want to get the fuck away from Gareth and out of this house, but they're just going to have to wait a little bit longer. Murder cannot be rushed. My heart rate is steady while I wait. I'm neither nervous nor excited by the possibility of discovery, or what's about to happen.
This isn't the part that gets my heart pumping. That's still coming. Are you sure you don't want to stay a little longer?
Gareth says to the final group of departing guests. There are a few insincere apologies and excuses, followed by the door slamming shut.
I'm not going to lie, that does make me smile.
He grumbles back to the kitchen and clangs some dishes together. That's the moment Jenny's leg chooses to twitch and kick against the toilet brush stand, sending it and the wet toilet brush rolling across the floor. As it rolls, I can't help but notice that its bristles need a soak in some bleach.
This reminds me, I need to check how much bleach they have in the house. I should have checked before.
Fuck. Oh well.
I'll make it work.
I'm a pro. I've cleaned up scenes with way less. Granted, I'm usually on my way out of the country by the time the bodies are discovered, but still.
I'm not going to worry about it too much.
I can always whip something up from whatever other household products Jenny has stashed away in her cupboards, or boxes that she still hasn't unpacked. Gareth must have heard the noise because he sneaks down the passage while I'm thinking about bleach. He's breathing heavily, on the other side of the door. I can practically hear his heart beating.
He's probably excited by the prospect of scaring the crap out of me, and being all intimidating and stuff. This is going to be so much fun.
As the door slowly creaks open, I reassemble my face so it looks suitably embarrassed and worried about being found where I'm not supposed to be. I crouch next to Jenny and pretend to try to wake her up, which is the last thing I want. Thank fuck she's completely out and doesn't respond. I feel his eyes on me as he leans against the doorframe.
He taps something against his leg.
I resist the urge to turn around. Killing someone is, in some ways, a little like seduction.
You need to take your time. Let them come to you.
Make them feel like they're in control.
And when the moment is right, you take their breath away. I thought I asked you to use the guest bathroom, Gareth says.
He doesn't even seem concerned about his wife, lying unconscious on the floor.
I thought I heard a scream. I turn around to look at him and notice the knife in his hand.
Instead of smiling, I paste a fake look of fear, forcing my eyes wide and even my lips to quiver. He of course gets that self-satisfied smirk I remember from childhood. I'd always hated it when he looked at Tammy like that.
I found her like this, I say, forcing myself to sound like a scared little girl.
I should have gone into acting if I didn't enjoy killing assholes like Gareth quite so much.
Plus, death for hire pays better even in Hollywood.
You'd be surprised how much a convenient overdose pays in those circles. I slowly stand up, damp clothes cling to my skin. Gareth's eyes travel up and down, licking his lips again like when we first arrived. He keeps tapping the knife against his thigh. I step back, almost stepping on Jenny's still wet hair.
I want him to take a step forward, and away from the door.
The small bathroom space can work for me in a fight, but I don't want him to have the advantage of being between me and the door. The events of the day, and the booze he's been drinking while trying to play host have screwed up his judgment. Under any other circumstances, he would probably have been able to control himself.
But I don't want him in control.
I want him to forget that my parents are outside waiting for me, and that his poor wife is on the floor at my feet. I want him to let go of that tight coil he has wrapped around his polished veneer.
I want him to let his inner killer out to play.
I can't help but wonder how many times he's been allowed out since Tamsin.
Has he killed anyone else? Or has he stuck to beating women up?
This time his would-be victim is going to hit back. The moment I've been waiting for since I was 8 years old arrives in a flurry of movement. I watch the flicker of intent dance across his eyes as he steps forward and kicks the door closed. I can't help the twitch of a smile as his grip tightens on the knife.
You've been a very naughty girl, Mars Bar, Gareth says as he takes another step towards me.
Jenny's unconscious body is the only thing between us.
Santa's going to punish you. I can't help it.
I burst out laughing.
Not exactly professional, but fuck it. It's probably the worst line I've ever heard uttered by a wannabe tough guy. He has to die just for saying it.
Rage twists his face as he makes another fatal error and lunges, tripping over Jenny's outflung arm.
I scoot out of the way and around Jenny.
He smacks into the tiled bathroom wall. I'm still laughing when he pushes himself away from the wall and turns towards me.
The door is now behind me. You think this is funny?
Gareth asks. His face is a confused mess as he struggles with his anger, his need to take his frustrations out on me, and the fact that something at the back of his mind is probably telling him that he's made a huge fucking mistake.
"Oh yeah," I say, rolling my shoulders. "This is hysterically funny, and you're a fucking joke." He actually growls at me. I mean, I've heard all sorts of things when one of my victims comes face to face with their inevitable end at my hand.
Most of them tend to beg, but that's usually because they know that they're about to die.
It still hasn't dawned on Gareth who and what he's dealing with.
He still thinks he's the one with the upper hand, and that I'm the one who's going to end up bleeding on his bathroom floor. Seriously, what did my sister ever see in this muppet? I sigh as I stretch my neck on both sides. I resist the urge to do the come and get it thing with my hands.
I hate it when one of the guys I spar with does it.
I know it's go time. I don't need to be told with some unnecessary and, quite frankly, annoying hand gesture. Corey Taylor's X-Mass bangs through the speakers in the lounge and drifts through the bathroom door just as Gareth loses his last grip on the situation and he lunges over Jenny. The knife glints in the bathroom light. My brain slows everything down around me, and I enjoy the beat of the music. It's the perfect song for brawling at Christmas, and I have to say I'm surprised it found its way onto Gareth's sanitized holiday playlist, considering the fake happy songs that have been playing since we got there. But anyway, back to the very short and disappointing fight.
He's holding the knife all wrong.
He attacks like a bull in a small cramped space. All brute force and fuck all finesse. If I'd been the defenseless sort, he would probably have managed to pin me to the cold floor next to his wife, and do whatever it was he'd been fantasizing about in his sick little mind. But it only takes a matter of heartbeats for it to be over, and Gareth's blood to be on the knife and the floor. Corey Taylor is still having a blast on the speakers. I'm barely out of breath, but I have to say I enjoyed the short burst of adrenaline, and I smile down at Gareth as he struggles to breathe. He looks up at me with confusion, and I smile down at him as blood spits out of his mouth and gushes out of several stab wounds. I punctured his lung with one of my stabs, and he's drowning in his own blood. My only regret is that I didn't get him to tell me where he buried Tammy. But it doesn't matter. I get to watch the life drain out of his eyes, and he dies knowing that I'm the one who killed him.
"This was fun," I say as I sit beside him on my haunches. "Not the best Christmas party I've been to, but certainly entertaining.
I'm sure Tammy, wherever she is finally at peace. And hey, it's not a real party in my circles until somebody dies." Gareth gurgles as more blood spills into his mouth as he tries to speak. Corey Taylor fades out, and Michael Bublé starts crooning Santa Baby as the light fades from Gareth's eyes, and just like that his party's over. Ho ho ho, home is where the bones are. The bathroom door slowly opens, and my parents stand in the doorway. Mom looks a tad surprised, but neither of them looks particularly upset.
"Oh my darling," Mom whispers. "Are you okay?" "I think it's pretty safe to say she's fine," Dad says, crossing his arms. The little wanker, on the other hand, not so much. "Yeah," I say as I look over at Jenny.
Gareth's blood is inching ever closer to her.
"Pa, could you help me get her into the bath?"
My dad nods as he steps over Gareth's corpse and grabs Jenny's ankles. I nod at him once I've got her shoulders. We lift together and gently put her in the tub.
At least I don't have to worry about getting forensic evidence off her, so that should make the cleanup easier. She just has to stay unconscious. "What can I do to help?"
Mom says, twisting her hands in a nervous gesture.
"I have to give it to the old bird. She's holding it together pretty well under the circumstances. I need you to see if you can find any bleach or cleaning products, while Dad and I get rid of Gareth."
Mom nods and dashes off on her mission.
"What do you want to do with him?"
he asks, eyeballing Gareth and shifting his foot away from the blood.
"He's got a well-tended flower bed at the back, next to the pool." "I noticed it too," Dad says. "It's weird considering they haven't unpacked everything yet, but he's had time to work in the garden." "Well," I say, stepping over his blood and grabbing one of the towels to wrap around Gareth's torso and hopefully catch any blood so we don't have to clean his entire house on our way out. He's already loosened the soil for us.
My dad nods and grunts as he helps me pick Gareth's dead weight off the ground.
You okay, old man? I ask with a sly grin. Don't old man me, little girl.
I can still hold my own. He groans as we shuffle out of the bathroom, Gareth dangling between us. My mother has found a bucket, mop, bleach and various other bottles of cleaning products. She's wearing cleaning gloves and hums to Christmas music while filling the bucket with hot water.
Don't worry about the mess in the bathroom, my darling, she says as we carry Gareth past her and out to the garden. I'll have it spotless in no time.
Dad and I both nod at Mom but don't say anything. I can see he's straining under the weight and is starting to pant a bit. Thankfully, it's not much further to the flower bed. We drop Gareth with a relieved sigh.
Damn, Dad says as he wipes his hands on his shorts. He's heavy. They don't call it dead weight for nothing.
I smile at the old man and spot a shovel conveniently propped against the back wall.
While I start digging, could you do me a favor and see if he's got any lime or lye in the garage?
He nods and trots back towards the kitchen, searching for Gareth's garage and gardening supplies. I start by carefully removing the plants and making a mental note of where they were in the flower bed, before I start digging a decent hole to bury Gareth in. My hands are getting a little tender when Dad returns with a bag of lye.
That's convenient, I say as I shovel another load of dirt.
Dad nods and takes the shovel from me, giving me a chance to catch my breath.
Your mother's having a lovely time in the bathroom. I haven't seen her this happy over Christmas since you were a kid. The shovel hits something with a thud.
We look at each other, exchanging one of those "that's weird" expressions. I climb into the hole and slowly start excavating the area.
I think we've found Tammy, I say as I look up at my father.
I can see he's trying to stay strong as his head bobs up and down.
Bathroom is sparkly clean.
Mom's cheery voice comes from behind me.
What's wrong?
She asks as she looks at my father's face, and then looks down at me holding Tammy's skull and the necklace she was wearing the night she disappeared.
I knew it, she whispers and curls into my father's arms. I always suspected he'd buried her here while he was house-sitting for the Smiths. What do you want to do with her, Mom? I ask. I don't think we should leave her here.
My parents nod as Mom says, it's time we brought our girl home. I nod and begin the painstaking task of excavating her bones and placing them gently on the grass next to Gareth's body.
I'll go make sure Jenny's still out, Mom says with a sniff and shaky hands when I'm about halfway through collecting Tammy's bones. I nod and watch her walk away. She going to be okay? I ask as I turn back to my dad and the task at hand. He nods. Why don't you take a break and let your old man do some of the heavy lifting for a bit?
I climb out and Dad takes my place. Tears slowly roll down his cheeks as he gently and reverently handles Tammy's delicate bones. It doesn't take us much longer to get the rest of Tammy out of her grave and push Gareth into the hole. We carefully sprinkle the bag of lye over his corpse and shovel the earth back on top of him. Jenny's still breathing, Mom says when she returns, carrying a black plastic bag for one of those big dustbins. Poor girl was whimpering in her sleep. Well, she's not going to have to worry about being terrorized anymore, I say as I smack the mound of earth down with the shovel, so it doesn't look too obvious that someone has been buried there. I then place the plants back where they're supposed to be. Mom gently places Tammy's remains in the plastic bag. She had a favorite spot in the garden. I think she'll be happy there. She sniffs and tears gently roll down her face. I nod as I watch her. At least she'll be home for Christmas, and it's where her bones should be. Merry Christmas to all, except the decomposing. With one last look around the bathroom, I have to admit my mother would make an excellent cleaner. There isn't a single drop of blood or sign of a fight in the bathroom. She's even put a towel under Jenny's head. It's a sweet gesture. She always was a caring person. I've never really allowed her to comfort me, and now that we have our closure, hopefully, I'll be able to let her in and be the mother she's been wanting to be for me. Don't go getting any funny ideas. Just because I've been able to give my family closure, doesn't mean I'm all of a sudden going to turn over a new leaf and stop killing people for a living. I love my job, and my mother didn't raise me to be a quitter. My parents are waiting in the hallway when I leave the bathroom. They've got all our shit together. Tammy's bones are neatly packed for the walk home, wrapped in the black plastic bag and placed in the cooler. They're eager to get out of Gareth's house and have their first genuinely Merry Christmas in years. Mom's even talking about making eggnog and roasting a chicken. Tomorrow she's planning a whole spread with salads, watermelon and ice cream.
I haven't seen her so excited about food since I was little. She's also eager to put the Christmas tree up, which should have gone up ages ago, but hey, better late than never, right? Surprisingly, I'm looking forward to decorating it with her.
It'll be fun. Gareth's suitcase, which Dad packed so it looks like Gareth pulled a runner, is next to my dad's feet. When Jenny wakes up, she'll think he's left her, and hopefully she'll realize it's for the best. My mother plans to keep an eye on her and visit her a few times to make sure she's okay. Dumping the suitcase in Gareth's car boot, I open the garage with his remote and make sure no one's walking past. Thank fuck everyone else is celebrating Christmas Eve with their families the way normal people should be, and not getting rid of their victims' cars and stuff. I know where to leave Gareth's car in the city center. I called a contact in the area who'll meet me there and give me a ride home once I've dumped the car. I've worked with him on other jobs in Johannesburg over the years. He's told me he needs to be fed over and above his usual fees, since he's missing out on another Christmas party to help me out as a Christmas bonus. My parents wave as I start the engine, then walk down Gareth's driveway as the sun begins its slow descent. They turn down onto our street, arm in arm, and the sky blazes with oranges and purples, the kind of show only an African sunset dares to put on, like a reward for a job well done. As I drive out of the neighborhood I grew up in, and listen to the Christmas carols tinkling through the car's speakers, I enjoy the sight of the decorations that I would previously have ignored or wanted to smash into little pieces. I can't help but think of that holiday greeting that's always felt a little overly sweet or traditional, and that always pissed me off, but somehow feels right driving through suburbia to dispose of Gareth's car. So, Merry Christmas to all, and to all, good night, well except the decomposing. About the author. Joan De La Haye writes dark and twisted thrillers featuring dangerous women, cold-blooded assassins, and survivors who turn the tables violently. Her stories push boundaries and revel in the kind of justice that doesn't play by the rules. Her characters don't wait for permission, they take control, exact revenge, and refuse to be victims. If you enjoy thrillers with bite, grit, and unapologetically fierce heroines, you've just found your new favorite author. Visit her digital lair at www.joandelahaye.com.